Hi, and welcome to Sunday with Mike number 73. On today's show, we're going to cover ceremony basics, a crossover trick that I just learned, expanded networking, and some outdoor setup tips. So grab yourself some coffee and join me. I'll be right back. Recently, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a DJ and also an officiant, and he was telling me how many experienced DJs in his market really do not understand all of the basics of wedding ceremonies, and he suggested that I cover this topic. So even if you do wedding ceremonies often, I hope that you'll still gain some insight and tips with this segment. So I want you to stick around with me because I'm sure you're going to pick up something from this. So just so that we're all on the same page before we dive in too deep, let's get some terms and their meanings out of the way. Prelude music is the background music that is played before the ceremony actually begins. So normally when you start playing prelude, there's nobody there. It's just you and your speaker and a microphone, and then eventually the guests start arriving. The processional music is the actual music that's used for the ceremony itself going down the aisle. All of the official walking parts are considered the processional. The interlude music, and this is not always needed, is in the middle of the ceremony. And this is for stuff like signing the marriage license, lighting the unity candle, sand ceremony, hand fasting, etc. And finally, we have the recessional music, and that's the exit music for everybody to come back down the aisle. The ceremony is over, we're celebrating, yay, everybody's married, and we're coming back. So it's important that you understand what they're called and what they do and what parts are what, so that you can speak intelligently to other people who do this for a living. Many people know these names, and if you do, it will give you some credibility because you know your stuff. So generally speaking, you're going to need up to 5 songs for the ceremony itself in most cases. It's important that if you are providing a microphone for the ceremony, that you make sure that it's turned on and ready for the officiant before you start the processional songs as they go down the aisle. It's really important that your microphone be turned on because someone needs to remind all of the guests, either you or the officiant, that the guests need to place their phones in the silent mode for the ceremony. Sometimes the guests are also asked not to take pictures. This is on a case-by-case basis, and fortunately it doesn't come up too often. I don't like being put in that position, but if I have to make the announcement, I will. There are a number of details that might be need to be announced prior to the start of the ceremony. It's traditional that guests are asked when to stand when a bride walks down the aisle. You know, for many, many, many decades, all the brides walk to the same song called the bridal chorus. Most of you would know it as Here Comes the Bride. Today's couples rarely use that traditional song anymore, and so it's very often that the officiant would need to ask the guests to stand because they don't know that that's the bride's song because it's not traditional. If the microphone is turned off, nobody's going to hear the officiant, and you're going to look like an idiot. So it's also common for the officiant to ask the bride, as the bride nears the front, right? I'm the officiant. They're coming up to me, and it's very common for the officiant to say, who gives this bride away? And either the dad would say, I do, or the parents would say, we do, or some variation thereof. But again, the microphone needs to be on so that everybody is being able to hear what's happening. I think you get the point, right? It's controlling the microphone in a ceremony is very, very important. So how do you know when to switch songs or to fade out? I asked the bride in advance how many people are in the parents group, right? That's the first song that we're going to play in the processionals. How many are in the wedding party group? That's the next group. And then who's walking with the bride down the aisle? Once you have a head count, then you can just keep track of how many people are going by. And then when the last one gets in their place, do a nice slow fade out and then begin the next song automatically without anybody having to tell you anything. Once you get the bride to the front, then you'll go quiet and the officiant will take over. And then finally, they may, if they're going to do anything during the middle, the interlude, right? When they step away from center, that's your cue to start playing the interlude song. Usually it's just one song. It's usually something instrumental, low in the background. And then they'll go sign the marriage license or do whatever they're doing. And then when they come back to center, that's when you would fade that song out again on your own. Nobody needs to tell you this stuff. So then the officiant will take over again, and then eventually they'll be pronounced as Mr. and Mrs., and they will turn and come back down the aisle. When the audience is clapping and everybody, yay, let that die down for just a second, not long, just a little second, and then start your recessional song. Have it cranked up. That's the celebration song. It needs to be cranked, and everybody needs to jam to it, whatever that is. Usually it's I Got a Feeling or something fun. So that's the basic outlines. And then sometimes there are post-ceremony announcements. So, for example, last Saturday, I was asked if I wanted to make an announcement after the ceremony or if the officiant did, but they needed everybody to go to the back deck because they were going to go straight into their first dance, and then they wanted to take a large group picture with all of the guests. And so rather than waiting to the end of the ceremony to make that announcement, I did it when I asked everybody to please turn their phones to the silent mode and also to spread the word so that everybody would know exactly what we were doing. So there you have it. There's ceremony basics. I hope it helps you in your future ceremonies.
DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
Hi, and welcome back. You know, there are times when you're not going to be able to use 2 subs at an event. And most of the time when this happens, because it's because of space limitations or the venue is really, really small or a small number of guests, etc. But it's more common for the venue to be really small and you just don't have enough room for 2 subs and tops. So my default setup now is to place one of the tops on a sub pole like normal, and then the other one would go on a normal speaker stand without a sub. I place that top in full range mode on the digital signal processing on the back of my speaker to help make up for the extra loss of the bass that I'm losing because I don't have the sub. So I want that speaker to be in full range, give me as much bass as you can give me. But because I put that speaker in full range mode, I do get more low end, which is exactly what I wanted, but this creates a problem because that speaker is going to go into limit mode more quickly because it has less headroom than it does when it's a top and the sub is doing a lot of that heavy lifting. And so my crossover is usually set to 120 hertz. So 120 and higher goes to the top. Anything below 120 is going to be handled by the sub. So for those of you that may not be familiar with this process and all of the settings that today's modern powered speakers have with the crossover that's built in, and they tell you what frequencies the speakers want to be processed at. So in this example, full range, everything goes to the top, as I just mentioned. And then when I'm running it at 120, only 120 and below is going to go to the sub, nothing higher than that. So to summarize this, when we can't use a sub, I would go into full range mode, limiting how much my tops could handle. But then I had the subs crossed over at 120 and everything below that. So last weekend, I was forced to use a one sub setup for a really small venue, but I decided to do some experimenting and I really liked the results and I wanted to share it with you today. So on the standalone speaker that I would normally put in full range, which limits how loud I can run the whole system because that one's gonna clip and limit first, because I've got it in full range. I decided to split the difference and I crossed it over at 80 hertz. So instead of going full range or instead of leaving it at 120, I just put it at 80. So it gave me a little bit more bottom, but not enough to drive it into limit. And it worked out really great, gave me some extra boom boom, but not enough to cause any kind of a problem at all. So remember this idea the next time you're forced to use only one sub. And for that standalone speaker, play around with your crossover settings and try to find something that you like that's halfway between full range and your max crossover, whatever that happens to be. Because I know for me, I'm going to be using this trick a lot more in the future. You know, way back when I first heard the term networking, I wasn't really sure what that meant or how it worked. But over the years, I've learned how important it is to network with others, especially when you find yourself wearing many hats to run your business like we do. It's natural to consider yourself networking when you are talking to other DJs in the business, and especially if you're discussing anything related to the business, and you really are networking with each other. Recently, I was talking with a guy that I bought my very first PA from a very long time ago. He and I hit it off and have remained friends over the years, and he was a leader in many of the aspects of the business that I wanted to get into. Many times our views were different, but I always appreciated his input and knowledge. Many of the things that he was into that I had no desire to learn, like DMX lighting way back when, but then when I got ready to learn DMX, he was the first guy I called. So it turns out that, as my life is unfolding, I've gotten into many of the same things that he had already been into, and I needed to learn a lot more about these things. So I can't tell you how refreshing it is to have a friend that knows more than you do on just about every subject in your business. And his knowledge has been invaluable to me over the years, and I try to give back to this friendship every chance that I get. I don't want to just take, you have to give back. So what's my point of this story? Network with everybody is the short version, not just DJs, because you never know when you might need some help with something that you're working on. Having the option to pick up the phone and call someone that has already been down that road is extremely helpful. But you have to be available to help others too when they need your help. With technology changing so rapidly, find these people that can help you to grow and expand your business. Taking them out to lunch is a great way to capture their attention and let them know just how much you appreciate their help. In my final segment today, I wanted to share some tips for setting up for an outdoor event. This one's been on my books for a while and I just keep passing it up, so I decided I would tackle it today. So make sure that you have a compass with you at all of your outdoor events. It doesn't have to be a real one, although I carry one of those and I like it. It can be an app on your phone, but you must have a compass. Why do you have to have a compass? Well, if we know that the sun will be traveling on an east-west basis, then I want to have a compass with me so I can predict the path of the sun and where we're about to set up, and is this going to cause me any grief during the course of the day? If it's going this way, eventually it's going to be on my laptop. or could be. It just depends whether my back is to the west or to the east. So these are things that you want to pay attention to before you get all your equipment in place and then regret it later. Sometimes you can lower one side of your tent, tilt it a little bit, and that will offer you some shade for your laptop. There have been times when I would use a towel to place over my laptop screen and stick my face inside of this towel to read the screen. I mean, think of the old time photographer setup. You know, they got the black cloth and they're looking, and then poof, they take a picture. Well, I would take a towel and do the same thing with my laptop just to be able to read the screen because I hadn't learned these tips yet. Another thing that you can do is that if you have a banner or a sign with you, and most of the time, you know, people attach these to the bottom of the tent, well, you can move that and use it as a sunshade to block the sun. It might be on the wrong side for advertising, you know, but if it serves as a sun blocker, I'll take that trade-off, right? So ask yourself a few questions for this outdoor setup. Will the wind be a problem? Is it supposed to rain today? Knowing if it's going to rain and which direction the wind is blowing from can go a really long way toward making sure that your equipment is going to stay dry. Be sure to dust all of your stuff off, wipe it down after this event is over so that you'll be clean and ready to go for your next event. So that's going to be our show for today. I hope that you'll share it with your friends and give me your thoughts down in the comments section. Please don't forget to give us a thumbs up if we've taught you anything new at all. And remember, we're saving a seat for you in the Sunday with Mike Facebook group. I'll see you next week.